Hello, people, and welcome. I'm going to go through the Conference League final. I'm going to share my predictions, basically, and obviously the Conference League final, as you'll probably heard by now. Hopefully, you have the semi-finals were played at the start of the month, somewhere around there. The Conference League final happens tonight or this morning, depending on where you live. It is Real Betis versus Chelsea. Now then. Now, two sides going into this. One who has never made it to a European semi-final before this season and now has actually won on their first attempt against Fiorentina. That just so happens to be Real Betis. And two-time Champions League winners. And I think, and they've won the conference, not the Conference League, they've won the Europa League twice as well. Chelsea, I think they've won the Europa League twice. 2013 and 2019, I think it was. Anyways, so a side who doesn't really make it far in European competitions against a side who are meant to be elite in Europe, of course. So again, Real Betis versus Chelsea in the fourth edition, in the final of the fourth edition of the UEFA Conference League, given it is a relatively new tournament that only just started in the year of 2021. Now then, just quick fun fact, this is actually the first Conference League final that won't feature an Italian team. Also, and yeah, Fiorentina actually made it to the last two and lost both, which was against West Ham last year, not last year, in 2023, and Olympiacos last year. Olympiacos are the holders. They actually won the Conference League, they actually won, well, their first ever European piece of silverware. Real Betis look to do the same tonight, or this morning, depending on where you are. But anyways, so very recently have the La Liga season and the La Liga and the Premier League seasons ended. Real Betis are going into this final needing a win more than Chelsea. Okay, well, yeah. So, no matter what, Real Betis are going into the Europa League. But Chelsea are already going into the Champions League, so it doesn't matter for them either. But both of them have something at stake. Real Betis have, as mentioned many times previously in the last few minutes, they've never won the Conference League final. Well, they haven't, of course. I should say they have never won a European final. They haven't actually been to a European final. And before this season, they haven't made it to a European semi-final. Chelsea, on the other hand, they could be the first team, the first side in England to have completed the full set. And what I mean by that is that they've won everything that is possible to win if they win tonight. So along with the Conference League, if they win it, they'll have had the Europa League, Champions League, Club World Cup, Super Cup, and of course the Premier League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, even the Community Shield, probably. I think they won that at one point. But, yeah. So they both have something at stake, but I think ultimately Real Betis sort of need this more than Chelsea. Chelsea have only been to, Chelsea have been to many finals. Already this millennium, I think they've already won 4 pieces of European silverware, which is also the only 4 pieces of European silverware ever that they've ever won, probably. Actually, they probably did win the Winners' Cup many years ago. But yeah. But Chelsea have been to many finals, and as for Real Betis, well, they might not make another final. Like, in years. But looking at their route to the final real quickly. So let's have a look at Real Betis's route. So first of all, in the Conference League, well, in the league phase, Chelsea topped it. Like, they were, like, the favourites going into this from the start. And, of course, they are now in the final. Chelsea won all 6 of their games in the Conference League. In the Conference League phase. And looking at the knockout phase, which they actually skipped the... they skipped the playoff part. First of all, they had Copenhagen, but won both games in that tie, 3-1 win on aggregate. They actually, they won against Legia Warsaw 3-0 before losing 2-1, but they went through on aggregate anyway. And then Djurgården was just battered by them, and so here they are. Real Betis had to go the long way round. They finished 15th in the Conference League phase, so they had to go through that playoff thing, that annoying playoff thing, in which they played against Ghent, and they won 3-1 on aggregate before in the round of 16, they knocked out Victoria de Guimarães, and then Jagiellonia Bialystok. I think they're Scandinavian, those lot. I might be wrong. And then Fiorentina in their first ever European semi-final. It did go to extra time, but they just edged it. And so here they are. Although, as form-wise, it is not the best for Real Betis, as they have not won in their last 5 games, and have failed to keep their clean sheet in the last 11. In their last 5 games, by the way. Drawn 4, lost 1. And by the way, none of those draws have been 0-0 draws. Draws against Valencia, Rayo Vallecano, Osasuna, and Fiorentina, which, when you think about it, was a win because they went through an aggregate, and they didn't really need to win that one, just to make sure, you know. As for Chelsea, 4 in their last 5 were wins, those wins came against Premier League champions Liverpool, Djurgården in the Conference League, Manchester United, who have been shockingly out of form this season, and Nottingham Forest on the Premier League final day, in which secured them Champions League football. Their only loss in those last 5 games were against Newcastle United. So, yeah. It's going to be, I've heard many people say that it's going to be a bit of a closer affair than many people initially realise. And, I'm just looking at the predicted lineup. Yeah. It's going to be a lot closer than many people realise. Some people have said. I feel this could be a close contest, but I think ultimately Chelsea will edge this one. I'd say 3-1. By the way, on FootMub, 141,401 people have casted down their votes as to who thought they would win. And I'm not going to lie, it's quite evenly split. 48% of people think Chelsea will win, 46% of people think Real Betis will win, 6% of people think it'll end as a draw. That's probably after 90 minutes. I think it will end at the 90-minute mark, in which will be a win for Chelsea. But, yeah. But, 3-1 Chelsea. I think this will end. I've also looked at some analysis as well, and there's one clip showing Real Betis is set up at the back against Osasuna, which was a really narrow defence. But yeah, I guess I'll end it here. Hopefully you enjoy tonight's Conference League final, and goodbye. We also need to give out a special mention to Anthony as well, who has scored quite a few. I think he scored about 8 goals in on his loan spell at Real Betis, which is brilliant from Anthony, who left Manchester United out on loan in ruins, it feels, and now has absolutely he's absolutely tore it apart, really. And if he's thriving at Real Betis and not at Manchester United, then something is definitely going wrong at the club. 15th place finish in the Premier League, Manchester United, as well. So, yeah.